850 truckers die every year, but nobody's talking about it. Why? Tonight, we're going to break down the hard truths of trucking and safety. So kick back, relax. We got to do our thing. And we're going to see right here, Trucking Talks Live. We're doing things. We'll see you in just a second. As soon as I find the right buttons. Bam!
Paying too much for trucking insurance? What if you could save more by making one simple phone call and keep more profit? You could very well do just that with one simple call to Seabright Agency, 800-366-6466. Call now.
Now here's a question that all owner-operators and small fleet owners should consider. What happens when you access the unrivaled advantages that are available through the ES Advantage program? We asked Jeff and Charley from Contractors Corner to share their thoughts on how they've been able to utilize the discounts and services that are a part of the ES Advantage.
So we started looking for a way to save money on fuel. And we were turned on to the ES Advantage program for fuel first. So we got a hold of Jeff Reese, and he ran us through that program. And man, we were starting to save. And then we started talking to them. Well, we saw their website, and we said, Jeff, what's this thing about insurance and accounting and
Right.
You lease trucks? What?
Right. And that's the thing, is we only knew it as a fuel card. And when we started digging deeper, I mean, we ended up getting hooked up with an insurance provider, Seabright Agency, and they created an entire insurance program just for us and our people. And from that, we've learned that, now there's even more potential. There's a greater opportunity, and it's completely opened up our eyes and broadened our vision into what it is we're trying to do, which is help people do better. Wrapped with the ES community just makes that process so much easier.
Now, if you're an owner-operator or small fleet owner and you would like to learn more about how you can drive savings to the bottom line of your business, the ES Advantage program has the discounts and services that deliver the kind of unrivaled advantages that are designed to help you improve your overall operation. Get connected with the ES Advantage today.
And here we go. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, man.
What's up, buddy? So we were Jeff and I were chit-chatting before the show. Jeff's like, the time, dude. I'm like, oh, man. I've been completely dark since last Thursday, like no contact with anyone.
Yeah, some of us noticed more than others.
Sorry, man. Jeff's taking up all this slack. Yeah. Oh, man.
So,
So
a weasel walks into the bar. Bartender asks him, what would you like? Pop, goes the weasel.
Nice. I don't have one loaded up in my head. I had a couple that I was going to drop, and they're just gone right now. I like the one that Lisa dropped. I'm not going to lie. What do you call a nun in a wheelchair? Virgin Mobile.
Nice.
Just saying. Good Lord. So today, let's do the thing. Trucker Tim was first. Sean came in second, and Ismail was number 3. So yeah, that was cool. I got back super late last night. Like 1:15 is when I pulled into the yard. It was a long flight. It was a short flight, but a long flight. It was just emotional up and down, and got all that stuff. And it was good though. I'm glad I went. Like the cool kids say, no regrets, except for that damn rain. Dude, it rained the entire time I was there.
As expected.
And the last 2 days was torrential downpours, 4 and 5 inches a day. I'm like, what? How does that even work?
So you didn't get to go to Seaside and fly a kite?
Definitely not. I think the kite would have flown me. I've actually got some good kites sitting here over in my corner that I bought in Seaside.
Yeah.
You know,
They have those fancy trick kites there.
Yeah, that's what I got.
With.
And then, you know, I wrecked my first two, like irreparably wrecked. Just plowed them into stuff, man. One, I almost got a guy. That was awesome. He was not amused, but I was like, that's cool. Whatever. As the kite exploded. But yeah, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Oh my God. No power the night before I left. It was wonderful. So wonderful. Excuse me. Oh, we got more jokes coming in. I'll come back and hit those in a few. Oh,
you might need it after we talk about this, man.
Right, we may need it for real.
Talk about a topic that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody.
Right.
It's kind of like when you were a soldier, Charlie.
Exactly.
You go into the zone, you get to the other side of the wire. Nobody. You know, you just do it. You just do your job.
Just do the job.
You're not thinking about this part of it.
Yeah, there's no consequences. What do you mean? You know, but we all know trucking is the backbone of America, but it's also one of the most dangerous jobs out there. You know, we've got all this technology and that kind of stuff, but we're seeing, you know, injuries and fatalities in the industry. Like, I mean, just I don't know when. So our plan is to break that down tonight. I'm going to give you some facts and statistics and stuff like that I want to back up all this conversation with, and we'll chat a little bit more about it. But trucking ranks number 6 among the most dangerous jobs in America. 850 truckers die on the job each year. That's 12 to 14% of all workplace fatalities. That's gnarly. Fatality rates have increased nearly 20% in the last decade. And the leading cause? Highway accidents. 75% of the fatalities are highway accidents. So, you know, I mean, we can talk about, and we're going to talk about, you know, what's causing this stuff, right? And I have notes because I want to make sure these are important topics, and I want to make sure that I follow it. So if you see me staring off, it's because I'm looking at a different screen to make sure that Jeff hates it when I go squirrely on him. So we wanted to try and not squirrel out yet tonight.
Well, that's why I put our talking points, Charlie, behind my camera.
Right.
I'm just saying.
It doesn't work on my setup here, though. It doesn't. I'd have to put it above or below, and it would be really, either way, it would suck. And it's great because, you know, I put it on the bad side. So I typically have to keep my head kind of turned to the right just a little bit so I don't trigger that nerve that makes my migraines.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I've got my notes on the left side, but whatever. Highway crashes, speeding, fatigue, and distracted drivers, medical emergencies behind the wheel, heart attacks and strokes, loading and unloading accidents, falls or equipment failure, and violence and cargo theft, hijackings and robberies.
That one right there, Charlie, is something that you know, I've never felt unsafe any place I've gone. I've been to some pretty sketchy places, but the fact is that you got to have your head on a swivel on that one.
Right.
Violence and cargo theft is one of the statistics. I think that when you did your research, Charlie, I don't know if you actually found this, but listening to industry news, it's on the rise.
Right.
It's getting worse.
So let's look at this. I got charts, y'all. You're gonna love this. Like we're doing things. Let's see. Fatality rates. Not a pleasant topic, but we're gonna do it anyhow. Think that's the wrong one. Nah, it's fine.
Trucking fatality rates by company.
Yeah. So this is gonna sting some people, and I apologize, but get over it. These are facts from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Swift Transportation is actually up there at the top of that. Schneider, FedEx, UPS, JB Hunt, Werner, XPO, Yellow, Old Dominion, and CR England kind of round out the top 10. In a way, it makes sense. Swift and the size of these companies. I believe Swift came in at just over like 5.1 or 5.2. Let me see if I have a better graph in my notes somewhere. No, I don't. I'm lying. I can't get it. It's
So here's something to talk about when you're looking at these companies, Charlie.
right.
Notice how they measure it. They're measuring it by fatality rate per 10,000 drivers.
Right.
So what that is, let's get academic here for a second because I think it's important. When you're looking at the safety of a company that you might be going to work for, make sure that your statistics that you're looking at are like this, a per 10,000 drivers.
Right.
Another one is per million miles driven in the reporting period. And the reason we want to see that, folks, is because safety wise, if we were to look at the CSA safety scores, Swift is also at the top of that list, pretty close.
Right.
Because that one is per million miles driven.
Yep.
Why is that important, Charlie? It's because you want to be comparing apples to apples. You want to smooth that out.
Right.
The per million miles driven is the one that I really like. Okay. Because that smooths it out for everybody. Your little one truck operation is looked at the same way as someone with 10,000 trucks because it's per million miles driven.
Right. And I mean, there is statistical proof here that if you're working for one of the big carriers, you are more likely.
Mm-hmm.
It is statistically proven. It's not just, I mean, everybody's got their jokes, oh, Swift, whatever, right? I get it. But it's the amount of exposure, right? And you look at Swift, it's a training company. You break it down by the demographics as far as age and things like that, and we'll actually get into that. I have a chart for that too. It's pretty fascinating, actually, and it's kind of crazy, but without us out here doing what we do, the country shuts down.
Right.
I mean, it's just fact, but nobody realizes how dangerous it really is. Well,
and to the point, per 10,000 drivers again. So you look at a company like Swift Transportation, Schneider National versus FedEx, Old
Right.
Dominion. There is a difference in experience level there. You don't come out of truck driving school and go to work for FedEx.
Right.
Okay. You don't come out of driving school and go to work for Walmart Transportation. So I think that the experience level is part of what's going on in the numbers. And this is where we get to individual safety. Charlie, I'm that guy. I've had one accident in a 20-year career.
Right.
Just make a decision to not be that guy.
Right.
Now you can't control, like if Charlie and I are going down the road and Charlie's having a bad day,
right,
and he decides to do something wonky and puts me in the ditch, I cannot control that. All I can do is control. Well, like I know how Rosie drives.
Right.
She's got that bubble around her, and I'm the same way. I just did Wyoming in the middle of that big snowstorm last week.
Yeah, that was gnarly.
And, I shut down a couple times in my route just to take a look and see what the weather was doing ahead of me. Right?
Right.
So I need to let them out.
Go ahead.
Continue, Charlie.
Yeah. But, it's a trip because, what Jeff was saying is you can't control the person next to you, behind you, in front of you, right? Because of that, these statistics actually include that type of thing. It's not saying that, the driver of that big truck is the one at fault. It's saying that a driver of a truck was involved in that fatality, whether, they did something that got them killed or something happened that got them killed. So don't kind of put labels on things beyond what we're actually talking about. We're not trying to pick on any one company. We're simply trying to have an adult conversation. I know it's hard to believe, about the realities of our industry. And maybe there's some things that we can do to make things better. Excuse me. And I mean, based on that, what kind of things are you guys seeing as far as being out there when on a day-to-day basis? I mean, for Rosie and I, we get into these weird spots in the Southeast, the crazy rains and that stuff. We don't deal a lot with the ice and snow and that sort of thing. But it all seems to me that the majority of what I see seems to be either speed related, right? Following too closely, or distracted, or a combination of them. And that's something we could all work on. However, again, it's not just us, it's everyone else out there on the road around us.
Absolutely.
Statistical data, exactly. I think statistically that most drivers have their accidents at 10 to 24 months. I've even seen it on my small fleet. Ida said that. And that's something I was actually talking to Ida about, that we were talking to Ida about a few weeks back. And, because she was having to kind of rethink whether or not, she could allow brand new released drivers onto onto her fleet, for her, following distance and backing accidents, right? That's actually going to play into some more of what we're going to talk about. Excuse me, I'm having like tickles in the throat today. It's funny, not in a good way. What? Stop it. See, there we go. Some days I just can't stop myself. Have any of you been involved in like serious accidents? Luckily I've been in one that required me to be taken off in an ambulance. It was more precautionary than anything else, because I honestly believed I re-broke my back in that accident. Turns out I just sprained it along with my ankle and my shoulder, but whatever. I feel like I've been lucky to not actually be involved in a serious injury type accident. And statistically speaking, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And
yeah, that's one of those things when we're talking to Tony Dennis at Seabright, Charlie. He's always saying, well, it's going to happen, Jeff. It's going to happen, Charlie. It's just a matter of time. And I'm like, stop saying that. But it is true. The longer you spend on the road, both of us are up there in the multi-million mile range now. Statistically, I talked about it last week. Sometimes I've had that little voice in the back of my head, dude, your number's up.
Yeah.
You've been lucky for 20 years. That's got to run out at some point. And it could just be a little fender bender, right? It could not be a fatality at all.
Right.
But if it injures you, holy cow. Think about a couple of things here. When you injure yourself, whether it's in an accident, or you flatbedder guys that are getting up there in the years like Charlie and me,
right?
You're up around that skateboard all the time, tarping, you're strapping. I talked to a lot of guys that the slip and fall risk in that operation is huge.
Right.
Overexertion, just the heavy lifting. If you got to do driver load, unload. At Swift, they actually worked really hard to not renew the contract for a certain account up in Washington.
Right.
Why? Because their workers' comp was out of this world. It was a 100% hand unload, non-palletized, one item at a time at each store. And repetitive stress injuries. And I don't know if you ever did one of those, Charlie. I did when I first started at Swift. Dude, I was sore for days after that.
Right.
I thought that maybe if you did it all the time so that you stayed in shape, okay. Doing
Right.
a one-off on that really, really sucked. So,
So here's some actually cool stats on injuries, right? I mean, it's a perfect segue, Jeff. 90,000 plus truckers suffer work-related injuries each year. And the average injury, leads to 22 plus lost work days. Okay. Most of these statistics, there's an interesting fact about and behind some of these statistics. Most of these actually are counting company employee drivers. There's statistical information that the numbers don't that people who are contractors or independents have a lower statistical rate of claim of any of these things. However, the caveat is it's believed that the injuries exist or the fatalities exist, but they go unreported because the independents and us contractor guys tend to just push through things. And we just suck it up and drive on, and we're just like, I ain't got time for that anyhow. So let's move on. But the most common injuries: slips, trips, and falls, 33%. Ice, uneven surfaces, getting in and out of trucks, overexertion and heavy lifting, like Jeff was saying, 28%. Cargo loading, repetitive strain. Struck by objects, 22%. Falling freight, loading dock accidents. And then it goes into traffic-related injuries, which are 15%. Non-fatal crashes, being hit in yards or at stops.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And like I was saying, we as an industry tend to kind of push through the pain as a rule. We're stubborn. We ain't got time for that. Wheels ain't turning, we ain't earning. All of those cliches, right?
Well, the worst case we've seen, Charlie, of this, we had a guy that got hit on the belt loop in Atlanta. You've all heard the story. And, we keep in touch with him. He's still disabled to this day. And that was 2 years ago?
Right.
He can't work. And, all indication is what ended up happening was, Swift gave him a loaner, and 2020 hindsight, right, Charlie?
Right.
If we would have known then what we know now, we would have really pushed him to just get in that truck and go home. Don't haul a load. Don't hook to a trailer. Just get your butt home and get to the doctor. Instead, he spent a couple of weeks out running freight and ended up injuring himself even worse because he was putting strain on that original injury. And he's still on disability to this day. And
probably will remain so.
Yeah. So think about that. Little things like years ago, Charlie, I broke my ass. Slip and fall, right?
Right.
It was icy in Utah. I fell off my steps getting out of the truck. I don't know how this happens because I always do the 3 points of contact. But when you slip and for whatever reason your brain says, let go.
Right.
What happened? Before I know it, I'm on the ground. Well, for 6 months, my tailbone hurt. I didn't say nothing to anybody. I got a donut at the TA, sat on it.
Right.
What I should have done, though, I should have gone to the doctor. I should have gotten checked out.
Right.
Because who knows? When I did have my accident, I broke my hand. I've never really broken a bone before, right? So it just hurt. I didn't know why. Whatever. I always thought, Charlie, that if you broke a bone, it hurt worse than it does.
Right.
So 3 weeks later, I go to my doctor because my hand still hurts. He's like, oh, looks like you broke your hand. How'd that happen? I'm like, oh, I had this accident 3 weeks ago. He's like, so you just kept working for 3 weeks. I'm like, I don't know. It was sore.
Right. It's legit.
As a result, my pinky is never going to be straight again.
Right.
Right. It's weird. Not that big of a deal, but still, when you slip and fall and you hurt yourself, it is especially for you guys out there. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Oh, I could take it. Okay, well, maybe. Maybe not. You just don't know, especially as you get up there in the years. And Charlie, you have something about that, don't you? Injuries by
Yep.
like how old you are or something like that.
Yep. We're gonna dip into that here in a second. This is a hilarious statement because D-Lo, her spell check is translating Spanglish, I believe, even though she's speaking Chinese or something else right now. Love you, D-Lo. Miss you. Gosh, I miss seeing your face. Anyhow, and yeah, she's like 2 foot tall, in case anyone didn't know. She's tiny and scary at the same time. Recently she had a driver trying to unstuck a trailer door, slipped off, and broke his back. And this was an experienced owner operator.
Oh my.
You know what I mean? It could be any one of us. You don't have to be new to make a silly mistake. You get in these grooves, you do these things, and you just keep going through it. Let's do this. Nope, that's the wrong one. Look, I already screwed it up. There we go. Trucking injuries and fatalities by age group. Let me get rid of the logo because it's blocking part of that.
Do your magic.
I can do this. Watch. Let's do this. And then let me throw that one back up. It didn't happen. Why didn't it go? That's weird.
Delete logo O.
Right?
Go.
So it's broken down 18 to 24-year-olds, 25 to 34-year-olds, 35 to 44, 45 to 54, 55 to 64, and 65 plus. Right? So 2013, non-fatal injuries is the little yellow line here. 2023, we're seeing that climb. Right? And when I was doing the research on this, it was basically stating that the younger drivers, they believe that the reason there's less injuries with younger drivers based on improved training and safety programs and things like that. And then we start getting into us old dudes. And look at that. We're up at the top of this. Right?
Yep.
And we're steady at the top. Except for the fatality side. Well, it's still the older guys. I'm just not in that bracket yet. 55 to 64.
Mm-hmm.
The average age, the median age, they say cool words, of the American truck driver these days is 45 plus. That says something. Our folks are, we're getting older. We don't have a ton of brand new people coming in. So the vast majority of people are getting up in that range where it's a little more sketchy for us, So if you're young, man, keep doing good things and don't take risky chances. I'm sure there's a little of that not reporting thing happening, right? But you look at the fatalities and it's pretty low on that end.
Well, what's interesting is it starts dropping off at the 55 plus on all three
Right.
Reports. I think though that is between probably 45 and 55 to 60. You still think you're younger than you are.
Right.
By the time you're 60, I've observed guys start being more careful. My buddy Jarrett, he's 63. And he's a lot more careful. When I trained him 15, 16 years ago, I could tell you he was not.
Right.
So I think there's that mind shift change, that mindset shift of, okay, I'm old now. Let's slow down. Let's take things a little more careful. But there's that area that you and I are in, Charlie, where we still think we're 30.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's as we age, we are more prone to injuries and illnesses and serious medical issues, right? I mean, some of us have been doing this an awful long time, and that's a lot of years sitting on your butt with very little movement, activity. So, it starts falling into medical things like, diabetes, poor circulation, heart attacks, strokes, all of those things, years of mental anguish, suffering alone on the road, because that's a thing. I'm a little over the top with mental anguish, but you guys get what I'm saying. Um, it's real stuff that I think is super important that we don't forget. Yeah, and like Tim said, broke a tailbone, there you go, could speed to a spinal cord infection. Silly little things, that might have been fairly minor to start with, have consequences if you don't treat it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a trip.
Well, my mom, Charlie, I spent the week with my folks here last month. She was in the hospital. Now, she's in her 80s now, so it's a little different, but still, she broke her foot. Just broke her foot. That's it.
Right.
You and I think, oh, so you're in a cast for a while, maybe you wear a boot. But at her age, it's a matter of, okay, now we have to watch for infection. Because one of the things that happens as you get older is your immune system starts to decline. You got people like me with the diabetes, right? We have to be real careful with our extremities, right? Like my broken hand, with my compromised immune system, if that bone had been rubbing on muscle and ripping things up,
right,
infection, right?
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you're septic and you lose your arm, and nobody's happy about that. So there's consequences to this stuff. Don't be a Rambo. Don't be a hero.
Right.
Go get yourself checked out if you get injured. We all have insurance for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Out.
And I'm going to put the shameless plug out there, Charlie. If you've got OCAC through Seabright, it's not like OCAC through your company.
Right.
You actually get taken care of.
Right.
Okay. So go get taken care of.
This was an interesting bit here too. Trucking injury rates by company. Right. So these are injuries, not fatalities or anything like that. This is just injuries by, what the Bureau of Labor and Statistics puts out. But by the way, all of these charts are 2023 charts, 2022, 2023, 24 numbers, of course, aren't out yet because apparently it takes, a year and a half or two to compile them. So whatever, I would think that computers could do it pretty quick, but whatever. So, UPS, and these are injury rates per 100 workers.
Okay.
Right. So UPS is just under 7. FedEx is just over 6 injuries per 100 workers. XPO Logistics, Yellow, Old Dominion, Swift Trans, Snyder, JB Hunt, Werner, CR England. And this isn't. We're not picking on any one of these companies. This is legitimately the top 10 in the trucking industry, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics.
Mm-hmm.
These top 10 companies have the most injuries of all companies. And it's based on that injury rate, 1 per 100 workers, right? But, so I believe that I can speak on the Swift Transportation one, on the fatality side. Again, the fatalities aren't necessarily truckers' fault, but involved a trucker being killed.
Yeah, one of the things that we're not prepared to go over right now, Charlie, but someone did bring it up. That they believe that most of these accidents are caused by four-wheelers doing stupid stuff.
Right.
And I have looked at it before. I'm not prepared to give a fancy graph like you, but according to the what is it called? The Highway Safety
Administration. Yeah.
Administration. That is absolutely the case, and it's overwhelming. It's something like 60. It's over 65%.
It was
of
depending on which study they
found.
looked at. It was like between 60 and 80.
Yeah, it was found that the person that was at fault was in fact the four-wheeler. Now, in our industry, though, I have to point out that there's a difference between at fault and preventable.
Right.
As professional drivers, you may not be found at fault, but that doesn't mean you get to keep your job once all the video is looked at.
Right.
So we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there are some main contributing factors to these numbers here. The number one is driver fatigue and unrealistic schedules. So tight deadlines equal exhausted drivers making mistakes. Right. Most injuries like this, you think about it, it's 9 times from what I've seen. I get in a rush and I skip a step. Literally skip a step on the tractor, or just decide I'm gonna crawl out of the truck forwards, right? Because I drive people nuts with that one.
I've seen you do that, and I yelled at you.
Yes, it's a weird habit. In my defense, I grew up
Airborne.
Yeah, right. I grew up around stairs, and I was a paratrooper, and they're like, "Jump, man, jump." The next one would be poor road conditions and infrastructure. Bridges, highways, and truck stops weren't built for modern freight demand. Distracted driving epidemic. Phones, GPSs, in-cab devices are causing more crashes than ever before, they say. And here we go. The aging workforce and health issues. More drivers are over 55, and that equals higher risk of medical emergencies. So what are people doing about it, though?
So there's a couple points I want to make right now.
Yeah.
Part of the aging driver, because we saw this in a slideshow at site, remember?
Right.
The aging driver population. And the lady that was giving the presentation is an expert in this stuff. Okay, whatever they call it. I'm sure there's a fancy term that she uses for her job. But part of it is trucking is where people come that got laid off.
Right.
And I think that there's a real thing where people think, oh, I'll just go drive truck. That's easy. And so they come into it with what I would consider kind of a dangerous mindset already. And the other thing, I'll put that back up real quick, Charlie. On that bar graph there, look at who those top 4 or 5 are. They're all LTL companies.
Yes.
Those guys are under enormous pressure. FedEx, especially, the world on time, right?
Right.
You're not late on a FedEx. They have no tolerance for that.
And that's exactly what the Bureau stated, was that LTL, as far as injuries go, is the most dangerous. They are far more likely. They're making more stops, more in and outs, more up and down, more climbing, around docks, things like that.
Yeah. So that's something to consider when you're looking for your next step in your career, because we know that a contract with FedEx especially is quite lucrative. But there's a reason it's that lucrative, right?
Yeah.
You got to look at everything. Are you willing to be under that kind of pressure? I'll be honest. There's two very lucrative places that I could work that I have said I will not work there. One of them is FedEx, because the pressure to drive when maybe you shouldn't be driving is there. That's a fact. The other one is Walmart, because of all their stupid rules. Walmart company, people that actually work for Walmart Trans, they make a lot of money. I'm not going to lie. They do really well.
Private fleets are the least likely to have these injuries, by the way.
Yep. I believe it. Well, I have friends that work for Walmart Trans, and their safety program is bordering on the insane.
Right. And that takes us exactly into, what can be done about this stuff. And the first thing is fleet safety programs and new driver training initiatives, right? Mm-hmm. More investment in collision avoidance type technology. I know it drives a lot of us nuts, the beeping, the bells, and the whistles, and sometimes we feel like they're more distracting than a help.
Oh, man.
I got to tell you, Jeff told me, like, you're going to get in a new truck and you're going to be like, damn this thing. But you're going to see, and I've seen it firsthand, the lane departure warning has made me a better driver.
Yep.
100%. It hurts me to say that, But it has. It has kept me more focused. I'm on a mission not to hear that brrr, brrr coming out of my speaker. Drives me nuts, but it means I'm centered in my lane better, more frequently, more often. Less likely to catch things from either side or accidentally kind of bump somebody, right?
Yep.
And better medical and wellness support for drivers. That is a hard thing for us to do. You know?
So I can't let this one go, Charlie, because you know what I'm going to say about this.
I know.
Blackbeard, I shut all that stuff off. So here's the thing. You get in an accident, your fault or not, and you have all that stuff turned off, some lawyer's going to find out about that you had your safety equipment shut off at the time of that accident. Guess what? You just became liable for the whole nut.
Yep.
We've seen it happen.
Whether you're at fault or not.
Yep. You tampered with safety equipment on your vehicle.
Why did you do that, big evil mean truck driver?
Yeah. And that means you're an unsafe driver, obviously. And that's what they're going to argue in court, and they will win.
And you were out to hurt people.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We know you're not, Blackbeard, but, you know, the lawyers, that's their job, is to get money for their clients. They don't care about you. Heck, they don't even care about their clients, Charlie. They care about their fee.
Reality. They're 33 1/3% or whatever it is, you know.
Injured in a big truck accident, call 1-800 screw a trucker.
Right? There's that fabulous place in Atlanta. They boast, we're your 25% lawyer. Whatever, man. Yeah, it really is kind of crazy, man. I mean, but what's the most dangerous situation you think you've ever faced as a trucker, Jeff, and the audience included? You know,
mine is weather, 100% weather. You and I were talking about it when I was driving through Wyoming 2 weeks ago. Because we were talking on the Bluetooth, and I was passing that area in Nebraska where I had that accident.
Right.
And I'm just like, man, I'm just not having a good thought right now.
Right.
Call Charlie.
you get the twitchy vibes and the spidey sense or whatever you want to call it.
Where I would go before, I don't go now. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's the weather for me. Specifically ice. I start seeing my antennas on my truck freezing up. That makes me pucker up a bit.
Right.
That freezing fog wigs me out.
So, and the beautiful thing about this is, you know, so thinking about the most dangerous things, right? What are each of us doing to protect ourselves? You know, so for me, it's Rosie rubbing off on me. Hey, now, God, I'm broken.
You are.
She is very adamant about keeping as large a bubble around her, what she calls her bubble, to the front, the sides, and behind. That woman is a little over the top for me sometimes, but it's what keeps her from getting into these things that pop up right in front of you or right next to you, right? She wants to keep a lot of space all the way around her, and she will drive slow enough to make people crazy enough to just go around her in, you know, safe ways and manners, right? She's not out there blocking a single lane doing 40 miles an hour, but she is known to maybe slow down to 55, 52, just so that guy gets off her butt and goes around in the middle lane or the fast lane, right? I get a little more aggro at times, and I'm like, Murr. But I have found myself more recently being a little more proactive like she is and trying to just create space. You know, in my early years, it would just be I speed up. Now I just slow down and let them go by, man. And they typically speed away at a speed that I'm not willing to drive anyhow.
Well, that was the biggest anxiety I was experiencing on my little foray through the snow the other day was trying to stay out of the pack because the next pack catches up to me and they're being stupid. You know, they have the variable speed signs in these states that have a lot of snow, right? The LED speed signs. And you know, the speed limit that's posted for safe speed, that's exactly what it says, safe recommended speed, 45. People are still doing 60 down that ice road. And it drives me nuts, man.
Yeah, for real. I got some stuff coming in here. Let's see. Yeah, Tim. Tim said, I seem to have a problem weaving in my lane. Even had a cop pull me over in a personal vehicle with his wife and parents in the car, thinking he was drunk. Flashlight to the eyes proved he wasn't. Since I started driving at 15 and a half, right? Was always kind of led to favor the fog line, the right side of the slow lane when I'm in that lane, or the far side of whatever lane gives me nobody on that side, right? It gives you that fraction of a second more between you and that guy going past you next to you to react. And that fraction of the second in my brain says I have that much more time to deal with it. So in my trucking career, I spend my life in the right lane because you guys all know that for the most part, I drive slow, you know, slower than most, not slower than all, but slower than most. And so I spend a lot of time in the right lane. So I've always favored the fog line. And when I got in this truck with the going on, oh man, did it let me know what a jackass I was. Because I'm riding that fog line. And, you know, I haven't been cited for it, but I have had people, you know, mention, hey, man, you sure ride the hell out of that right line a lot. And I'm like, well, you know, it's my thing, right? TK says he still doesn't like going up to Washington, but he does. Weather will always be a thing to try and check now more than anything. Lisa, we were asking about dangerous situations. Stopping to help at an accident in the middle of the night, you know, almost getting hit while getting people out of a crashed car.
Oh, gnarly man. So that reminds me of chain up areas, man.
Right.
Chain up areas are dangerous. It's all get out. You know, it's been a while, but there was that one in Ontario, Oregon. Everybody's on the side chaining up. Dude's maybe a little too far away from his truck, got ran over. Just flat ran over.
Right.
He had a high-vis vest on and everything. Still got ran over. Chaining his truck up. Those are dangerous situations. I think though, if you really are conscious of it, you can protect yourself. Like in that situation, when I'm chaining up, I'm right up against that truck.
Yeah.
Right. I try to get my chains on the highway side done real quick and get out of there.
Good night, D-Lo. Thanks for popping in. Appreciate you. Miss you. Love you. No, and I mean, that's the thing that, you know, Brian, worst place on the planet that scares him the most is the idiots on I-75 through a Cal area. I literally just slow down to 55 or 60 and let the wonderful people go by.
Hey, Charlie.
Yep.
Just make sure your bed is down before you get on that highway.
Okay. That's right, because you will see those signs. Is your bed down? Is your bed down? Is your bed down? It's always in triplicate. I find that amusing. Tim, that's what happened in the Green River Tunnel in Wyoming. You know, LED sign said ice and tunnel, and the speed limit was 35. People were driving too fast.
Yeah, I finally saw photographs of the aftermath of that before the fire started. That was a big pileup before the fire started.
Right. You would think that I mean, I know the tunnel well. Most of us do. You can see kind of things ahead of you through that thing. A little bit of a transition with the light to, you know, darker, but it's a pretty good lit tunnel, and you could see that clearly there was a problem ahead, I think. But
well, I was telling Donna too that particular tunnel going westbound, especially, it's got that steep grade
right
on the west end of it. And I've seen guys that I don't know if they didn't read the sign before they enter the tunnel or what, but they're just barreling out of that thing.
Right.
Triple axle, tag axle down, real
Right.
heavy, and they hit that freaking canyon. I just don't get it.
They're going in too fast. Let's be real. And drive for the conditions in which you can see. Right.
Yep.
If you can't see far enough ahead and stop within that distance, you're going too fast.
Yep.
I am a firm believer in that. I have been known to break that rule myself, and I think about it afterwards. I'm like, you idiot! You couldn't have stopped if you wanted to right there. Thank God nothing was in the road in front of me. And it usually takes one of those moments every couple of months that tightens you up, and you go, "Oh God, complacency!" Right? Complacency gets us all the time, and it's
and you're talking with Swift safety people over the years. There is a time frame that like the corporate safety people see a lot of accidents, and that's between about year 6 and 10.
right.
And I was talking to Byron about this before I left Swift a little bit, and we were talking about that time frame and why. And that's the time of complacency. You got just enough experience under your belt where you're pretty comfortable in the truck, and you just get complacent. I got this, and then that's when you make mistakes. So, we talk a lot about processes in our community.
Right.
We're going to actually be doing a class on that here soon. I might just do that Saturday. I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, so can you build a set of processes that makes you a safer driver? Charlie and I have talked about this. You and I both are running through scenarios in our head,
Right.
especially when we are approaching a place like Atlanta. On the 85 is a real common place for me to be coming into Atlanta and hitting that belt loop. And I know there's crazy people there.
Right.
I know it. So when I'm going into this area, I'm thinking, okay, so what if someone comes from the far left to hit that exit? What am I going to do? I'm thinking about that as I'm driving down the road. And, it's not by much, but it's going to it's going to decrease your reaction time.
Yeah.
You can react a lot faster if you've already decided what you're going to do. So you guys that drive, and especially you guys that drive through certain cities, certain areas, like Wyoming. A lot of us drive Wyoming all the time. It's dangerous in the wintertime.
Right.
What are you going to do if you start seeing that trailer come around? Decide ahead of time. What are you going to do when that jack wagon passes you doing 60 when the sign says 35 and then starts going sideways in front of you?
Right.
What plan ahead of time? What are you going to do? This was part of the point in the Army, Charlie. Whenever you went on a field exercise, you went over everything ahead of time, including contingency plans, right? And then what did you do after? You did the after action report review, right? I think that's another thing. When you get done with driving through one of these situations, stop and take a little breather because your blood pressure is probably up because you felt unsafe there. And say, okay, we made it through. How did it go? I know it sounds silly, but we're talking about being safer out on the road and not becoming one of these statistics. And this is one way you can do that. What do you think, Charlie? What one of the questions I know you wanted to bring out is what can we change in the industry to become safer as a whole?
Right.
That one is one of those that nobody's going to want to hear the answers to it. Because I think that some of there is a component in there, the technology.
Absolutely.
Collision avoidance. And I see it on the socials. That stupid crash avoidance thing hit my brakes when I was going under an overpass.
Right.
Okay. I could tell you that that's happened to me maybe twice in my career. So my first truck with crash avoidance was in 2012. So we're talking 10 plus years with these systems in my truck. And here's what I learned. It did it twice. I took it to the shop and I says, hey, this ain't cool. I didn't take it to a Swift shop. This is key, guys. I took it to
Right.
the dealership, and they recalibrated my system, and it didn't do it anymore.
Right.
It's like I had a student once that didn't believe that Jake brakes actually worked for some reason. It took me forever. I kept telling him, trust your equipment. Trust your equipment.
Right.
You know, as long as you're maintaining your equipment and you can trust your equipment, trust that equipment. It's there to help you be a safer driver.
Right. And
Always
life
wear your
on
seatbelt.
wheels, always wear your seatbelt. You know, I am not a fan of seatbelts. Never have been.
Ticket, Charlie.
Look, man, early in life, I had friends lost because of seatbelts. Back in the day, jammed up seatbelts were a little bit more common. And people burned, and that terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me. The thought of burning is not. It's up there at the top of the bad things that could happen, like being eaten by piranhas. Okay. You know, I mean, good Lord. But I have seen videos of truck accidents where the driver's not wearing a seatbelt. And I feel like some of those could have been corrected had he not fallen out of his seat or her seat, not to put it on us brilliant men. But legitimately, I believe that more people, it baffles me that professional drivers aren't wearing seatbelts, honestly. Or I like those ones that loosen it up real far and lock it in place. That's going to do nothing to help you stay in that seat.
Yeah.
You're going to flop out of there.
Well, you know, we're from a different generation too, Charlie. Like my dad had a 1970 Dodge Charger. I think it was a 70. It was the one that nobody wants. But anyway, it was a Charger, so it was cool, right?
Right.
Well, it was one of the first production models that had the stupid seatbelt alarm on it. So you know what he did? He cut the seatbelts out and just kept it clipped in.
Right.
That's how we grew up, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Riding in the back of Grandpa's pickup truck, you know, it's all that. But I can tell you that now it's so automatic for me to use a seatbelt. It's not even an issue.
Right.
You know, it's just habit at this point.
Rosie tells me in the car all the time, seatbelt. I'm like, dang it, you're right. I don't know what it is, but I get in the truck and it's not a problem. It is absolutely
from professional driver to civilian driver.
Right. And that's a thing. I mean, it's weird. I get it. It's a me thing. But Rosie is my seatbelt alarm. I'm even known to ignore the seatbelt alarm in our vehicles, our personal vehicles.
Oh, that would be annoying.
Oh, dude, it's baffling. It like one of ours, it starts beep.
So my minivan, the sensor in the passenger side seatbelt is broken.
Oh,
so it thinks that it's not clicked in.
Right.
So every time I come to a full stop and the car goes into neutral and I pick back up, ding, ding, ding. Freaking imagine this, Charlie, because you know I get the headaches.
You're right.
I'll have a headache and that happens, and it just freaking, I feel like killing somebody.
Right.
It's
no, it's definitely a trip. So with all that being said, guys, we're at the midpoint. Absolutely open to discussion on this or anything else you guys want to talk about. We've started some comments that we'll go back and we'll filter through. But yeah, we wanted to talk about this stuff because we're losing people that we don't need to lose. You know, and our community is aging, as crappy as that is to say. And we need to take these younger guys under the wing, as they say. Here you are under my wing, whatever.
You are the wind beneath my wings.
We need to be open. We need to be honest. We need to understand that, you know, we're not 10 foot tall and bulletproof, as much as I hate to say things like that. You know, my brain thinks I am still to this day. It's, you
Well,
know,
everybody looks 10 feet tall to me. I'm only 5'7".
exactly. You know, Jeff coming in at 4'7", you know, he's got a thing with being 3'7", and I don't know, you know, whatever, but you know, but when you're like Jeff and you're 2'7", I'm just saying.
So Charlie's brain doesn't even acknowledge my existence.
But no, so you know, a little levity there. On a serious subject, you know, I think it's important that, you know, we actively talk about things like this, you know, that we are aware of it. It's not just hidden in the back of our head that nobody talks about. If we're not talking about it, we're not doing anything to change it or make it better. And I think that, you know, the act of discussing issues and finding solutions, or, you know, maybe just, you know, reinforcing something that, you know, somebody else does or says, you know, hey, I get you, man. You know, I think that's beneficial to all of us, and the trucking community at large, you know. So we're gonna do a thing. We're gonna be right back, and we'll open up the floor to whatever the heck you guys want to talk about. Like I said, we can keep talking about this stuff. We can talk about whatever it is you want. And yeah, let's do that. You're either running your business like an owner or like an employee. And if you're stuck in that employee mindset, you're leaving money on the table. Company drivers wait for direction. Business owners create opportunities. Company drivers chase miles and just drive. Business owners chase profits and know their numbers. Want to run a real business? Start tracking your numbers. Know your cost per mile and start saying no to bad loads. Drop "I run a business" in the comments if you're done thinking like an employee. If you want to take this mindset shift further, join the Road Warrior Entrepreneurs community at www.rwedrive.com, where we have profit boosting strategies, coaching calls, and real road warriors winning together. All right, so we're back. We're doing our thing. You guys, we've been talking about kind of the heavy side of the world, and you know, outstanding, Tim. I love it, sir. And you know, it's we're trying to make sure that, you know, we come in each week, most weeks anyhow, and talk about something real important. I mean, not that, I mean, everything's important to someone, right? But you know, to try and share a perspective on certain things. You know, next week we're actually going to talk about no one's going to like this one. So tonight we talked about the trucking risk. Next week we're going to discuss what happens if the worst occurs. All right. Are you prepared? Does your family know what to do? We're going to talk about business succession planning, financial protection, ensuring your family isn't left in the dark. I think it's going to be a good show. Nobody really, it's one of those topics that you don't want to talk about, but you absolutely need to, guys. So let's, oh, I muted things. I don't know what happened there.
That was weird.
Did I mute my voice?
No.
Okay. It was weird because my light popped up. Oh, you can't hear anything. But it's one of those things that, you know, nobody wants to talk about, but we probably absolutely need to. Right. But that's going to be next week. Hot markets for next Monday. Well, Brian, you could probably share us a little more information on that. I know you're pretty active on the load board side of things over there. I haven't been real active in openly or actively watching markets lately. My head's kind of been in 92 places and not necessarily focused on that side of things right now. But if you got some insight, sir, absolutely pipe in and let us know what you got going on. What did we start? Let's see. I got a couple back there. Oh, that one goes with what I just said. Brian had questions about regions showing rates. Midwest is always consistent from his perspective, but he's been doing well in the Southeast, west to Memphis, Little Rock market. So that's cool. I'm gonna ditch that one. And look, Brian Jess is coming in like hardcore. This dude, love that dude. He's home preparing a nice steak and crab leg dinner for his wife and him tonight. 20-year anniversary. Dedication, sir.
Congratulations, man. That's some that in our society today, Charlie. That's something that a lot of people won't experience.
I could sing my anniversary song. You want me to do that, Jeff?
Was it copyrighted?
Probably.
Oh,
Happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy, 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 happy anniversary, happy, 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 happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
but you're gonna pass out there.
Woo, I'm a little light now. Good Lord. Play that for your woman there, Brian. I'm sure she'll enjoy the heck out of that, sir. I am glad. Oh, good. Let me get some more of my cigar. That'll fix it. So, yeah, here we are. You're welcome. You are all welcome for that. I can't wait. I'm going to. Oh, wait. That's going to be a clip.
It is. I guarantee it.
God.
Hey, Donna, it's 1 hour, 8 minutes in.
Jeez Louise. Oh, well, whatever. Never goes away.
Oh, man.
You're welcome, Brian. I'm glad I could help, brother. And thanks for spending a little time with us on your anniversary, sir. Like I say it every week. It means a great deal that you guys take time out of your week to spend with us each week, and I dig it, man. I am absolutely grateful. I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. That's a weird thing for me to pop off. It's something I do in the house pretty regular. It's a weird thing. Lisa wants to type up a dark joke. Lisa,
I can't guarantee that we will put it on the screen.
Right. No guarantee it's going up on the screen. Oh, a sing off. Charlie versus.
No.
Hey, all right. What song?
Do your best, Barry White.
I got no Barry White in my head right now. Dang it. I'm drawing, man. This is terrible. Oh, Lord. Lisa, knock yourself out. Put it out there. I don't know if I'll put it up or not. Just saying. It'll be fun. Good Lord. So I'm going to scroll back through chat and see what kind of stuff I missed, because I'm sure I missed stuff, Jeff. Oh, Lord. I love the setup to Lisa's joke already. Jeff, what do you got right now while I'm scrolling, man?
I don't know. I'm kind of foggy today.
Right? There's been a lot of chat. I apologize. By the way, hi, Donna. I didn't say hi earlier. My bad.
I'll answer this one real quick. Sean Fairman wants to know, do you think today's semi-synthetic is really that good to do 500,000-mile changes? Well, according to the OEM, yes.
50,000 mile.
50,000-mile changes. According to the OEMs, that is the standard now. And it's not just the oil, it's the filtration. It's the engineering of the engines. It's a lot of factors. But for the standard Swift operation anyway, 50,000 miles is the oil drain intervals on these engines. You can actually take it a little further in other operations, and in some operations, it's all the way down. What was the lowest we saw on their official chart, Charlie? Like 25,000?
Yeah, 25
for some operations. But if you get into your owner's manual on your truck, it'll explain the whys and the hows of that. Now, if you're like me and you can put an oil bypass filter on your truck, I don't change my oil even that often. I think the last oil change I did on the 16 Charlie before I parked it was at 150,000 mile interval.
Right.
But you have to understand, this is a change in thinking. I don't change the oil on that truck until the lab tells me to, and I pull an oil sample every 25,000 miles.
Right.
Then into the lab, I change the filters. and they tell me when I need to change my oil. And so they look at everything from your standard concerns like viscosity to the wear metals in the oil itself. And what's cool about it, again, you can't do this if you're leasing a truck, by the way. Just I don't even want to have that discussion. Just don't do it until you actually own the truck. But because I could see the wear metals and everything and potassium levels and all that stuff, it allows me to do actual preventative maintenance on the engine. So, for instance, the potassium I'll bring up, Charlie, because high potassium levels is indicative of an injector problem. And I know that because I do oil sampling. So then it's time to look at the injectors if I have that elevated number. Certain wear metals could be the rings are wearing out, right? It measures the blow by. You can measure anything that's in that oil. And as the numbers go up, it triggers something. And what's cool about it is, so Pittsburgh Power sells the one that I use, the OPS EcoPure.
Right.
And if they see something in your oil, because they get a copy of the oil sample, they'll call you on the phone and say, hey, let's talk about your oil sample real quick because we're seeing some issues. And they will recommend to you, go get this checked, go get this checked. One of the issues if you're going to extend your oil drain is the amount of base in your oil. And this is not what people that didn't take high school chemistry probably don't understand, Charlie.
Right.
There's base and then there's acid, right? So if you have low base, you have high acid. So what Pittsburgh Power has recommended, and they're actually selling this alongside the filters now, Charlie, is an additive that adds alkaline back into the oil. And they're recommending you do that with your filter changes if you're going to do extended oil drains. Right. So there's a lot of science in it, Charlie. Everybody says trust the science. So those of you guys are like, I would never do that. I'm going to say trust the science on this. Trust the engineers.
Right. But you got to follow directions. You got to follow the steps.
Right.
We've seen in the past.
Like I had my truck in at Swift about 2 years ago, Charlie, at the West Valley City Terminal. It was right as I was moving here. And they saw that EcoPure on there. And the shop steward actually comes out to talk to me. You're using that, huh? I'm like, well, yeah. Why wouldn't I? Well, we put that on like 5 trucks and we ended up blowing the engines. And I looked at the dude, and I said, well, obviously you weren't following the guidelines. What, were you just going 200,000 miles without pulling an oil sample and changing the filter?
Right.
Because that's how that happens.
Which is exactly what had happened.
You got to follow the instructions, man. It's like a lot of things with mega carriers, though. Why doesn't Swift have APUs? Well, you do a little bit of research and you know that they took 300 trucks out of the fleet and put APUs on them years ago. And they didn't last. Well, why didn't they last? Charlie, they didn't last because the drivers weren't doing the checks on them.
Right.
They weren't bringing them in for the PMs. They didn't do all the things that you need to do to take care of an APU. That's why they didn't last.
Goes perfect with what Brian just said right there. Get that preventative maintenance done, drivers, not just the oil and filter changes. Remember those shocks, overhead, power steering fluid, transmission fluid, drive axle oil, etc., etc., etc. Yes, sir. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, oh, I went in for an oil change.
Why?
On a big truck, that was it. That was it. That's all you did was change your oil? Baffled. And they're like, yeah, man, everything else is too expensive. I'm like, oh, God, Lord help you.
So I've had the opposite argument with Swift shop people. Because I would put a truck in knowing that there was this, and this that needed to be done. And it was visible, and they were doing a DOT inspection on it. Right? I'm like, well, what about this thing? Oh, well, we didn't know if you would want to pay for that. Well, you didn't ask me.
Right.
Of course I'm going to pay for it. It's my truck.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I get that thing fixed? Well, we have a lot of owners that if we just do stuff, they yell at us. Well, don't just do stuff. Give me a phone call. But I'm not going to say no. It's maintenance on the truck. The thing that pays my mortgage.
It's part of why I'm paying you this service fee.
Right.
To inform me of potential issues.
Ah,
You know, it's a thing for anyone
yep.
keeping track.
Brian Jess is driving a pack car.
Yep.
Huh.
So far, so good. He says almost 90,000 since he got it.
Interesting. Because there's a time when you couldn't give those away. You know that. And I'm still skeptical. So let's get some numbers on Brian.
Right. But you know, Jeff, you and I were talking about the dude over in
Dave the Angry Trucker.
yeah, trying to get a hold of some numbers there too.
Yeah, because that he's the daft guy. In case you guys don't know who Dave the Angry Trucker is, you've probably seen him in his crazy daft stuff he does. Well, I looked up the daft truck, and it's a pack car product. Can't get it in the United States, but it's a pack car product. So I'm wondering, he loves that truck so much. I did find his email address, Charlie, and I need to email him, and maybe we can get him on. That'd be a trip, wouldn't it?
Awesome. That would be fun.
Probably like 2:00 in the morning his time or something.
Right. Hey, Trucker Tim, I've never thought about drive axle oil. How often should that be looked at? Same with the transmission and power steering fluid changes. I can tell you that my Freightliner service schedule states that I am to change the fluid in the power steering box as well as the filter every 100,000 miles. And the rear ends are supposed to be drained, inspected, and refilled every 350. I know that because I just did it, and I pay really crazy attention to my service intervals as per my contract, right? I know you own your truck outright, so you know you're not probably looking at that quite so intensive. Probably not a bad idea to kind of fall on something like that, though. I can tell you, I think it'll save you some heartache in the long run.
Yep. Yeah, and when you do the transmission, by the way, make sure you ask that they have the correct oil for that, because it's a specific oil that you're supposed to be putting in those transmissions. And a lot of times the shop, they might not have some, and they will just use what they have.
Right.
Don't let them do that.
Do we know if Swift has done that during their B service? I can tell you that it's a coin toss. Yeah, I have to walk in with my contract. Now I don't have to. Now they see me coming and they get out the contract. They're like, I got it right here, man. But one of the arguments that they had with me is like, you know, we tell people they need to do this, and they're like, no, that's too expensive. The B service with getting the power steering box and all that stuff changed usually runs about $1,000 overall for the full service that I get at every 100,000 miles. You know, and I do the standard B service every 50,000 according to the contract. And of course, you know, look for anything that's out of whack or something along those lines. Yeah. So I to answer your question, I don't know, Tim, whether they've done it or not. In the past, it was something that I had to specifically get them on board with and told them, I understand it's more expensive, but I got to have it done as per my contract. Yeah, you know. So yeah, life on 18 wheels. By the way, what's up, man? Does his oil change every 30K on his A26 at the lube zone. They check the diff oil during the service and show you what it looks like. That's legit. You may be doing, depending on the year of the truck, you may be doing your oil changes a little frequently, but I mean, I used to do them on Chewy every 20,000 miles. So I was doing it like every month. I did not have an OPS on it, and I figured I was better safe than sorry. And, you know, purely my own money being thrown out the window, but I felt good about what I was doing.
But you did buy an OPS just before you had to retire it.
Right. I've still got it all in the box. That's the crazy thing. It drives me nuts. It's still sitting over here, and I'm just like, gosh. Brian said the power of the MX-13 and how smooth it runs is pretty nice. His guy did the trans and disc fluid today, and nearly no shavings on the plug magnet for all three. Gear 279 on the truck. Nice, man. You know, and a lot of people aren't doing those types of services, or if they are, they may not be aware of it, you got to talk to these
Well,
people.
I'll admit my ignorance. My first 2 trucks, I didn't know any better. I just didn't. And
Right.
I was taking them to Swift for all the services, figured that they would do what needed to be done. And then I found out that they weren't. So I treated the 16 a little differently.
Right.
And that was a 1,000,000-mile truck before I started having any real problems with it.
Life on 18 wheels with your 2019. I'm not sure what is a good interval for you other than maybe getting, maybe pull a sample at your next oil change. Ask them to pull a sample and run it through whoever the lab is that OPS uses. Might give you a good indication whether or not you could go a little bit further on a typical basis.
Yeah,
And,
if you go to Pittsburgh Power's website, they sell the individual sample kits.
right.
And when you buy one, postage is already paid. So you just fill the little bottle, send it in. You go on their website and log the sample and all the information that they ask. There's instructions in there to do all that. And after they actually get the sample, it's like 3 days, and you'll have your results. So shipping is they bounce between FedEx and UPS for whatever reason, but it's an overnight shipping deal. So
Pittsburgh Power's website, scrolling across the bottom right there, https://pittsburghpower.com. Definitely check them out. I dig their service, so they got lots of cool stuff. And once you're actually a customer of them, you could actually call them and ask them questions. They'll pull up your name and be like, oh yeah, he buys stuff from us. And they'll answer a lot more questions that way. Just saying.
yeah, they're pretty adamant about it. If you haven't bought anything from them, they're not all that willing to give away free advice.
Right.
But
And I get it.
But if you're a customer, man, they'll help you out.
Oh, let's see. Yeah, Tim, legit. Then I feel I should assume none of that has been done. So with 605,000 miles, I might try and have that all perform while I'm on a vacation next week. I can tell you the oil for the diffs is expensive, so just be prepared. The transmit or the power steering fluid and that, like I said, normally bumps up that 500-ish to about $1,000. Plus all the other stuff that I have done. I mean, I have it, but I'm not going to pull it up right now. Sorry. All the things that are supposed to be done with my 50,000, 100,000, 350. Probably a good time to do it, man. Get them to write you up a quick quote and give you an idea on what to expect as far as the money numbers go, and then make decisions appropriately and try to get those things done probably sooner rather than later. Rear ends are expensive, and they're really hardcore as long as you keep good fluid in them.
Yep.
They do really well as long as you keep them lubed right. Power steering, get those aches and groans and the screaming. Definitely something you should do. I was not real big on swapping out the filters in the power steering box on Chewy. I did it once in the time that I had it. I just honestly didn't know, and it was because she was screaming is why I did it. And I didn't have too bad a problem after that for a while, but but then with this contract I'm on now on this lease truck, they're real specific about you getting it done every 100,000 miles on the steering box and that fluid. So,
Yeah, and that's the thing too. When you're leasing a truck through one of the mega carriers like Swift, who uses IEL, you do have a maintenance schedule.
right.
Learn it, pull it up, and make sure you're hitting all those. Because if your plan is, and Charlie, we were always saying it, leasing trucks is not the
Right.
only or best way to get a truck. You're never going to hear us say that. It's just a way to get a piece of equipment. But if your plan is to MRP that truck at the end of your 4-year lease, unless all of that stuff has been done, there's a possibility they could say no. And it's got to be documented that those things have been done.
Yep.
And they're protecting their investment as well, is what it is. I can tell you have a much longer lasting truck. You'll make more money with that truck if you just do the doggone maintenance. Man.
the little things will get you in the end and turn into huge, big things. It's kind of crazy. You know, Tim said he's also getting his DPF cleaned due to an ash cleaning diagnostic he had on for the past week. So yeah. I mean, you know, if you're going to be off for the week, you might as well get as much done as you can get done, man. That's the best time to do it. So, you know, you're not out there in the middle of a load.
Right.
And then lose the load or, you know, risk late and all that kind of stuff on something that you could have done preventatively. Proactive, not reactive, right? Always the better option if you ask me. How you doing, James? Good to see you, man. Excuse me. Good Lord.
Hey, how's life down there around the Gulf of America? Oh, I said it.
He also said fix the small stuff before it turns into big issues. Absolutely. That is the way to do it.
Yep.
You know,
Well,
maintenance.
that's what I love about having that oil sampling program.
Mm-hmm.
Is I can get things done before I end up broke down on the side of the road in Timbuktu, you know, get it done while I'm home. So I'm not spending days in a hotel somewhere.
Quiet, Jeff, he said. Drill, drill, drill. Oh, here we go. Now we're starting.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Hey, it's not a show. It's not a show, Charlie, if one of us hasn't offended half the people.
Right? Maybe between the both of us will offend them all, and it's just be me and you here talking. It wouldn't be the
That's
first
how we
time.
started. That's how we
Right?
started, right? Oh, man. So what are we going to talk about for another 32 minutes? We got more comments here?
Let's go to Wade here. Can you do the Pittsburgh power schedule while leased in a Swift truck? If you're on an IEL lease, you cannot put, they don't want the OPS on their equipment. So until you pay for the truck, you can't use that system.
Yeah, the contract states no modifications.
You have to get their approval to put it on that truck. And I absolutely will tell you, they will not approve an extended drain cycle, even if you have that on there.
Yep.
They are adamant about it. I've fought for the last couple of years, Jeff and I both, and several other people have fought, and they're just like, look, pound sand, bro, we're done talking to you about it. Hey, James and Trucker Tim, they're both in Memphis.
Nice.
Yeah, James, easy to spot. He'll be in a turbine. Sorry, I got other notifications popping up on my screen. I hate when it does that. I need to make that stop. Smart people could do that. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, by the way, we are going back to Tuesday next week for our regular scheduled show slot, y'all.
You won't be flying in the middle of the day to the middle of the night?
I hope not. Good Lord. Yesterday was a long day.
Well, how long was the flight from Oregon to back home?
Okay, so not actually that long, right? It was an hour and 50 minutes from Portland to Denver. Then we had a couple hours to hang out there. And then the flight from Denver to Tampa was 2 hours and 58 minutes.
Really?
Dude, that's what they said. I didn't actually time it, but it was delayed, weather and all this other crap, other flights coming in. Our plane that we were getting on to Tampa was late getting in. It was just, it's funny because, yeah, it is for as long as it was delayed, we definitely made up some time. We had a serious tailwind. Like, they got those cool apps and stuff on the plane now. And I was watching what our altitude was and our speed and direction and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, we were doing like 540 miles an hour. I think it said something along those lines. On the way to Phoenix from Tampa, we were down around 450, I think is what it was. So flying into a headwind, it looked like, and it took us longer to fly to Phoenix from Tampa than it did to fly from Denver to Tampa. We were moving, man. It's kind of cool. I got to look out the window. I was on the left side of the plane, the proper side for what I wanted to see. We flew down the along the Gulf into Florida, got to the Big Bend and hung that right. And I got to look down because I was tracking where we were on the GPS, right? And I got to say, hey, my house is one of those lights down there. That was cool, 18,000 feet.
Nice.
It's kind of neat. Texted the son real quick because I had texting on there. I sent him a screenshot and he's like, oh, cool. Anyhow, yeah.
No, you know, it was weird is when I had to fly from Salt Lake to Denver and then from Denver to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I was doing? I was looking out the window looking for Top Golf because I knew from Top Golf where the airport was.
Right. Yeah, I'm still like that. I love staring out the way. There was a time when I couldn't be on a plane without a window because it would make me like dizzy, wobbly. Apparently, I actually gave up a window seat on one of our flights to Rosie this time, and it doesn't bother me anymore. So that's cool.
Huh.
So now I told her, I'm like, by the way, we should probably swap windows every now and then because she likes looking too. You know what I mean? And the leg that I gave her was pitch black. Whatever. I'm a terrible person. What are you doing for me? She's like, yeah, there's so much not to see out that window right now under the clouds and dark sky. Enjoy it, babe.
You know what the trip though is when you see a lightning storm from above the lightning storm.
Yeah.
That's a trip.
That. We had one of those cool moments in the flight to where it made everybody in the plane gasp out loud and make noises. Oh, dude, we hit a turbulent pocket that was something else. I'm like, and I'm looking at the flight attendants, had to use the right word. I was going old school there. I was looking at the flight attendants and they were both on their feet in the galley. I was sitting in the very first row and they were both in the galley on their feet doing things like, starting to get ready to. Things flew.
Nice.
People hollered. And it couldn't have been a couple seconds. You hear slam, slam, doors closing, and both of them jumping into the jump seats. Like, oh my God, that a little warning would have been nice. It was hilarious. I was just giggling the whole time because I was like, man, I remember flights that were the entire flight was like this.
Well, you know what I learned about flying on Black Hawk helicopters, Charlie?
Yes.
Is to watch the crew chief.
Right.
Because when the crew chief does this, the pilots are getting ready to do something just for you. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Trucker Tim. I hate when I want to look out and the passenger at the window shuts them. There was a guy in the aisle seat in one of mine and Rosie's flights. And I swore he said something about the sun, right? So I started to close it. No, don't close it. I'm like, oh, thank God. I was being pretty mellow this week. It was weird. I was very thoughtful of other people, even though I apparently thought wrong, but whatever. It was cool. I was adulting. I was doing things. I enjoyed it. Yep. Life on 18 wheels. Window seat is a must for me. So we flew Southwest. You get a boarding priority position. You get a boarding position, right? They give you 3 groups, A, B, and C group. And the A group goes right after the people with like wheelchairs and things of that nature, the little kids and stuff like that. They let them on. No assigned seats. You get to enter the plane and sit where you want based on your boarding position. The very first flight to Phoenix, we were number 11 and 12. On the second flight, we were number 1 and 2. So we sat at the bulkhead right up front, first row. The first flight at number 12, we were only like third row. The third flight, we were number 4 and 5 and sat in the front row at the bulkhead. And on the last flight from Denver to Tampa, I went for the exit row over the wing because legroom. My seat had no seat right in front of it, and I'm like, yes, please. I rethought it.
I like the emergency exit row.
Yes, it was fantastic. The only problem is you're halfway down the plane and trying to get off the thing is good
Oh,
Lord.
so while you were incommunicado, did you see that plane crash up in Canada?
Yeah.
Somebody actually had their phone out during the exfil and posted it.
That's
wow.
gnarly. Yeah,
Imagine the plane stops and you're upside down. That's great.
So my brother Pat texted me as we're about to get on the plane in Portland. He's like, "Are you guys flying through Chicago? Did you land in Chicago?" Because of that Southwest plane that crossed over the one taxiing across that was coming down, and he's like, "Oh no, there's a plane crossing," and pulled back up and flew away. I'm like, "No, man, we're going to Denver." He's like, "Oh, geez." Because, we all think the worst when we see things like that. And he knew we were flying Southwest. And Chicago's one of the places. I intentionally picked flights that didn't go to Chicago. The Denver one had me a little worried, honestly, on the way back.
Yeah.
But I figured, whatever. Could always rent a car from Denver and go back to Oregon if I had to.
Did you have a long enough layover to where you could go down and see the funky paintings on their walls in Denver?
No, I stayed right up in our terminal and didn't go downstairs. And look, so Denver has this big outdoor patio at the end of every concourse. I got a little excited because I saw an outdoor patio. And as I got closer, realized it was full, and I mean full of no smoking signs.
Like Florida, there are no parking signs?
Right. On that note, Florida has an inside security outside the building smoking area. I did not know that till this trip.
Oh, okay.
So I got to go have a cigar while we were there for, a couple hours. We got there a couple hours early just so that we weren't rushing or anything like that. None of the other airports that I went through have any smoking facilities within security.
Yeah.
But you know what? It actually wasn't that bad. I got a little excited with that one in Denver, like I said, because I was like, "Oh, I can go smoke," and I grabbed a cigar and started walking that way. And I was like,
I remember it's probably been they probably stopped it maybe 10 years ago, but even at the Salt Lake Airport, they used to have smoking areas inside the terminal. These glass boxes you could sit in and smoke. That used to be a thing.
Right. Oh, APU. Sorry, I missed that earlier, Matt and Wade. I apologize. You can have an APU installed on your truck at your cost, even an IEL truck, but understand that there are caveats to that. It's probably not going to come off that truck because they typically put holes in the truck or things of that nature. That they aren't happy with. So they want you to leave it there so that they're not having to patch holes or fill holes or any of that sort of thing. Or let's say, for instance, your contract is terminated and you're not near your home. How are you going to get that thing off and get it home?
Yep.
It's not as easy as you think. So yeah, there's a thing. David Jones. Another feeling, Charlie. I flew into Salt Lake yesterday. No smoking areas in the airport, right? They hate us. That's fine. Whatever. I get it. Whatever. I wasn't actually like wigging out. I had a small moment at Denver because I got all excited because I thought I was going to go smoke. But, whatever. It went away and I got coffee and candy and a sandwich.
There you go.
So it was fine. James, any news about the new pay package? Nope. Got nothing. Yeah. Wade, very carefully. Yeah. How are you going to get it off? Very carefully. Exactly. not real practical in the event of, let's just put it that way, having seen some recent experiences.
Yeah, because if Sus got possession of the truck, how are you going to get that thing off?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
We had a driver recently terminated contract, left to go get a rental truck, and had a heck of a time trying to get that rental truck back into the yard so he could get his stuff out of the truck. Like it was an act of Congress and security and stuff. So just saying, look, if you've been terminated, they're not your friend anymore. Let's just leave it at that. I've got feelings about that, but whatever. Are they doing percentage? We just got to wait and see what.
You're probably not going to hear us use that term, Wade. We know what they've been working on. We haven't had any updates, so we don't know what the final package looks like. I'm going to say, Charlie, that from what we've seen and what they've released to the public that we could talk about, think of it as an all-in load board. There's going to be a rate, all in. That's what you're getting paid to haul that load. How they arrive at that rate, Charlie and I feel like that's really none of our business. It's either a good rate or it's a bad rate, and you can say yes or no.
And a disclaimer, everything that Jeff and I were privy to could change yesterday, tomorrow, who knows? Mm-hmm. So we are of the opinion that at this point in time, we're going to wait and see what is dropped.
And, I'll say too, you guys that are so stuck on this percentage thing, I'd like to see you change your mindset on this a little bit. Whatever the rate is it good for your business or is it not good for your business?
Right.
I actually, Charlie, I don't care if they take 50% of what they're being paid. I don't care. There's this thing right now out there, broker transparency, carrier transparency, everybody should be whatever. But here's the reality of business, folks. You don't necessarily get to know what deal Swift made.
Right.
That's not a thing. There's nothing legal about that. Nothing. Okay. There are publicly traded companies. So if you actually want to do the research, you could figure out the averages of what they're getting per load and figure some things out. But that's all public information, right? Let's flip it the other way. I love doing this, Charlie, because people always tell me it's not the same, but it is the same. Let's say that let's just take Swift out of the picture. Let's talk about broker transparency for a second. Again, I don't care what the broker's being paid. I don't care. Why? Because I'm going to negotiate my rate based on my costs,
right,
and what I think I'm worth. And I either take that rate or I don't. That's the business. So let's flip it around. Let's say they pass this law, and now brokers have to tell you on every single load, this is what I'm getting paid. Here's your percentage of that pay, all that stuff. Let's flip it around. Hey, Charlie, I'm the broker. You're the carrier. What's your expenses? Oh, you don't need that much of a rate. You don't need
an operating cost of 48 cents a mile, man. I'm only going to pay you 55 because I don't think you should get that big a chunk.
Right. It is the same, folks. Anytime you limit a business's profit potential through government, that is wrong. Absolutely. And I will stand by that. Do you want a wage cap? We keep on talking about raising wages. What about the cap? Where's the cap off? How much do you get to make?
Right.
Let's let the government decide that.
Right.
That's what we're talking about here. And then there's the camp that think that brokers should just go away, which, okay. Okay, so Charlie, you're a one truck guy and I'm Walmart.
Right.
Go pound sand. I'm not talking to you.
Exactly.
You know what brokers do? They get that Walmart freight for Charlie. That's their step in the process. So there's a lot of not understanding how business actually functions and how profit is made and how funds are distributed throughout a supply chain. We actually do need brokers, folks, with the way things are today. Now, brokers have only been around since deregulation. So about 1979, 1980. A lot of people don't realize that either. But with the new deregulation and the government not telling you can only haul from Phoenix to LA and this is what you will charge, which is what the regulations were, by the way. It opened up a whole new market where everybody could make more money. Initially, freight rates did drop.
Right.
That is true. But they've gone up as the free market took over. And you know us, we're capitalists. We're dirty, rotten capitalists on this show. Absolutely. I'm not ashamed of it. I've studied the different philosophies, so I understand capitalism, socialism, communism, anarchy, all those things. I understand them. I actually think that capitalism is the best path to prosperity for the most amount of people. So, Life on 18 Reels. If it's a rural, why shouldn't operators take advantage of it? You absolutely should. If that becomes a rule, you should absolutely take advantage of it. I'm saying the rule shouldn't exist.
Yeah, and don't fool yourself. If they put regulation to that side of it, just as Jeff said, what stops them from putting in the regulation that says the broker now gets to tell you that you can only make 55 cents a mile? Because your operating costs are 45 cents. Why do you need to make more than 10 cents a mile?
Yeah.
I mean, that's extreme. I get it. But it's to prove the point. It's to reinforce the point, Regulation goes multiple directions. And once they get a foot in the door, as they say, it can cause problems. Exactly. Trucker Tim, it opens Pandora's box.
Mm-hmm.
The less regulation, let's be honest here, the less regulation that is put into place, the safer most of us are. And I'm not talking about safety regulations because I believe a lot of those are good, but in how I manage my business, I don't need the government regulating that.
Right.
If I want to operate at a loss today, then I'm going to operate at a loss. If I want to, hold out for the crazy high rate because they got no one else to cover it, then I'm going to do that. Or I'm going to play what I think is right, what I can get in the meantime. I'm not a fan of the government getting in every single thing that you do. It's not what they're doing.
Yeah, and we can't talk about this, Charlie, without talking about don't haul cheap freight.
Right.
What's cheap freight?
Right.
You tell me what cheap freight is. Is it $1 a mile? Is it $5 a mile? What is it? I could tell you that for us, with our overhead, Swift guys, you guys are hauling for an average of about $1.65 a mile. Gross. Now, these independent guys, the carriers with their own numbers, and I'm going to start insisting on this one, Charlie. If you have your own numbers, you're not an owner operator. You're a carrier. If you're leased to a company, you're an owner operator. Those are the legal definitions. Okay. If you're a carrier, you're going to look at a Swift guy making $1.65 a mile and say, you're out of your doggone mind. That's not even profit for me. But you know what you don't have as an owner operator? You don't have cargo insurance. You don't have auto liability insurance. Your carrier takes care of that.
Right.
And those things are, I'm telling you, a new carrier, somebody that just got their numbers. And I know that there's going to be someone watching this after this show that's like, no, you're full of crap. It doesn't cost that much. Okay, good on you that you got a good deal. But we're looking at $45,000, $50,000 a year just for the insurance on a new DOT number. You guys don't have that expense. So you can afford to haul at that lower rate and still make a butt ton of money. So there is no such thing as cheap freight. There is what you, as the business owner, decide. This is the amount of money that I need to make to turn my truck on. Now, dare I get into the weeds this far with the immigrants that are driving truck, that are driving for that 80 cents a mile? Let's understand that. You know what, their overhead is next to nothing because they bought a truck for $5,000 and had their Uncle Jimmy repair it for them to get it roadworthy. They've got no overhead, and they're doing power only. So they're not, again, no general, no auto liability, no cargo. They're running super, super cheap.
Right.
So they can make a living on that low, that even to a Swift guy would be like, you're crazy. I can't make money on that. There's just too many factors to get into this. What's cheap freight? Because it depends on your business. When Charlie and I were looking at me getting my own numbers a couple of years ago, you know why it was? It's because we were seeing rates in the $4 range for dry van freight.
Right.
Thank goodness we didn't do that because the bottom fell out 3 months later.
Yeah.
But
so James said, if I break out from Swift, I need to make $2.90 a mile. How do you know that, James? What's your what's your what is
what's
it?
your auto liability and cargo? What's that going to cost you?
Yeah, that's the big one. That's the expensive one.
So now that we've learned more about insurance, we know, your collision and all that stuff that you buy right now from Seabright, it's going to be a little more outside of Swift, but not crazy. What's crazy is the auto liability and the cargo. That's what's crazy. So unless you actually know that number, James, you don't know that you need $2.90 a mile. And by the way, van rates, last time I looked was about 2 weeks ago, Charlie. I actually watched the DAT thing.
Right.
Average across the board on spot market was at $245. And it's slipping. I just read an article 2 days ago that both contract and spot market are on the decline right now. And the analysts are trying to figure out why. There's probably some political reasons that we're not going to get into because I defend everybody on that one because I have kind of a split personality opinion on that one. But the markets are on their way down again, which is a little strange. There's some capacity issues still. So I don't think you're going to get that $2.90 unless you get your own customer, which is possible. You could do that. I don't want to discourage you in that way. I just want you to know the numbers for real.
So according to DAT right now, on their trend lines, the Northeast is $1.89, the Southeast is $1.91, South, which covers New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, something else, 201, the middle of the country, Central, 229, and basically the left coast into just short of Iowa, 210.
So I have to say though, Charlie, because again, most of you guys that watch us right now are Swift guys. So let me explain what those numbers are. That's the line haul rate. That does not include any negotiated surcharges.
Right.
So you could get up to that $2.90 if you can negotiate that surcharge to bring it up there. But with fuel, it went up another couple pennies this week.
2 cents.
But we're still in the range of a fair and honest surcharge being right about that 40 cent.
Right. Yeah,
So
we're right.
the averages are around $2. You're looking at 240, so you're still short of your 290. So these are the things you got to look at, right? If you're going to go out there and become a carrier, you're going to get your own numbers. You really got to do the research and know ahead of time. Okay, so all my insurances, it's going to cost me $50,000 the first year. Now break that down into the month, and then you can start breaking down into what if you're going to average this many miles. But let me back up just a second. I know we're running out of time, Charlie, but I'm on a horse here.
Right, you're good.
When you're running a carrier versus being leased to a carrier, and you're not on a mileage contract, the only thing your per mile really matters for is for your evaluation of your business. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because you're looking at bigger numbers. And so what you're looking at is the profitability of your company, which is a much different thing than the mileage contract you're on right now. Okay. It's like we remember, we haven't hit this one in a long time, Charlie, but excuse me. We started talking last year about, is your business actually profitable? Okay. And what that is, after payroll and everything, what's left in the bank account?
Right.
The business bank account, what's left in there. And I'm one of those guys that I'm saying, if you have $1 left over after all expenses, including payroll, you have a profitable business. It's not hugely profitable, but it is profitable. Most people don't look at it that way, though. They think if they're taking home $80,000 a year, they're profitable. They're not. If you're emptying your entire business account every week to pay yourself, that is not a profitable business. And so that's the mindset shift that we're looking for, is to start looking in terms of being the CEO of your company. Look at your numbers in that way. Is your business profitable? I don't care if you're making $100,000 a year. If you don't have at least $1 left in that account, you're not profitable. That's business.
Yeah, over the last month, we the spot market rate was at 215 for January, and currently for February we're at 204.
So I must not have looked at it in longer than I thought. And it was like 240 or something, or maybe it was flatbed that was at 240.
Possibly. Last year in February we were at 207. The line is actually fairly flat for the last 12 months. Last month looks like it was actually the peak over the last 12 months at 215. Yeah, definitely the peak. 215. December was 211, which is higher than it's been for the 12 months prior.
Okay.
So, but it is on a slow decline according to that's band rate trend lines right now.
Okay.
The month isn't over, so that's not the final number. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. And Trucker Tim, that's why I haven't left Swift. He said the relationships, the learning curve, but ultimately higher pay elsewhere doesn't always mean a higher bottom line. And that's one of the things we talk about all the time. I don't care what your gross is. I care what your net is.
That's right.
I get people all the time. Oh, bro, I grossed, 15K this week. And I'm like, yeah, what's your net? They're like, I don't know. Or they say 1,500.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
That's real numbers, by the way. I've heard those numbers. And to be fair, a lot of times when guys have just abysmal profit for a week, let's be real. Sometimes it's because they had to spend money on the truck.
Right.
Okay. So you got to look. That's why you don't look week to week, guys. It's fun to look week to week. It's fun to pretend you're rich for a week, because next week you might not be, right? Focus on the month, the quarter, and the year. That's your focus. The month, the quarter, and the year. Anything shorter than a month, kind of useless. The quarter is a much better indicator, but the year, the end of the year, how did you do overall? That's where the real numbers are.
James, I'm going to correct your language here real quick. Again, he said again, it's cheaper to stay at Swift. I make more. You want to worry about if you keep more.
Yep.
Keeping and making are two different words, and these words are very important. It's the difference between gross and net, and that's what's important.
Yep.
The net is the important side. With that, guys, I think we're going to call this thing a wrap.
Right.
Yeah.
So next week, Charlie, we're going to talk about the scary stuff.
Yes.
What happens if you don't come home?
Exactly.
How have you protected the family? And this is really close to Charlie and I's heart because we've been dealing with our parents last few months. We've seen some things that caused us to ask some questions about our own finances and taking
Right.
care of our own families, and we're going to get into that next week. So remember, with no action, there is no traction. Keep that rubber side down.
Yep. Drop your thoughts and comments down in below in the chat or in the comments after the show ends. Keep the conversation going, guys. Don't forget to hit the thumbs and subscribe and all that kind of stuff if you haven't already done that. If you're new to the channel, by all means, engage us, good or bad. Let us know what you think. We're going to be live back to our normal schedule Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time next week. That is what, I don't know what date that is. What's the date? That's the 5th. No, that's the 4th. Sorry. The 4th.
So Saturday would be a perfect day for our next coaching call then.
Right.
Okay.
And you guys remember, no one out here is looking after us but us. Look after each other. We love you. We're glad you're here. I look forward to seeing you guys. You guys are my weekly therapy. I love it. And we will see you next week. Thanks, guys. I got to push a button. Train wreck.